Devil's Food Cake is rich, fudgy, and super chocolatey. It often uses dark chocolate to give it that rich chocolate flavor, sour cream, and baking soda, and we're using all of that in this cake today. We're also making a rich, fudgy buttercream, and of course, what cake would be complete without a high-quality butter? And today we are using my favorite challenge butter in this recipe. Hi, I'm Lindsay from Life, Love, and Sugar, and today we're making Devil's Food Cake. Okay, so to get started, we're gonna mix together our dry ingredients. So first we've got our all-purpose flour. To that we're gonna add our Dutch cocoa. Helps give that rich chocolate flavor. Baking soda and salt. Let's go ahead and stir all that together and then we'll set this aside. Okay, now we'll start with our wet ingredients. So again, we've got our challenge butter at room temperature. Put that in our bowl, and then we're gonna add some vegetable oil. I like to use a combination of butter for great flavor and oil for some extra moisture. The combination really gives you the best texture too. And then we're gonna add some dark brown sugar. All right, now we're gonna pop this on our mixer for about 2 to 3 minutes on a medium speed until it's light and creamy and fluffy. I'll usually scrape down the sides of my bowl once or twice during the mixing just to make sure everything is getting combined well. All right, so once you've noticed that it has gotten light and fluffy, it's light in color, fluffy, you're ready to move on. Next, we're gonna add our vanilla extract and one of our eggs. We're gonna go ahead and mix this until it's pretty well combined. All right, we'll add our second egg. Mix all that together, make sure everything's nicely combined. Okay, so now we're gonna add our sour cream. Once that's nicely combined, we'll go ahead and add our milk. We'll make sure that gets nicely combined in there as well. If it starts to look a little curdled at this point, that's okay. It's all gonna work itself out. Next, we're gonna add in half of our dry ingredients. All right, now with the mixer running, I'm gonna add about half of our coffee. Scrape down the sides again. All right, and we'll add the rest of our dry ingredients. All right, now once that's pretty well combined, we're gonna add the last of our coffee. All right, and I'm gonna actually go ahead and take this off the mixer and use my spatula to just kind of finish it off and bring it all together. So you'll want to grab your 3 8-inch cake pans, set them up with some baking spray and parchment paper so the cakes don't stick in the pan. I like to use a food scale to weigh the batter just so that I know that they're all even and they'll bake evenly in the oven. All right, now you'll want to spread the batter out evenly in the pan. It should be thin enough that you can just give it a shake. Now we're ready to pop our cakes in the oven. Okay, so while your cakes bake and cool, we're gonna make our fudgy chocolate buttercream. As I mentioned earlier, we're using my favorite challenge butter. We used it earlier in the cake, and now we're gonna use it in our chocolate frosting. We've got about 1.5 cups in here, and I love this butter. It's 100% real cream, no hormones, no fillers or additives. Farm to fridge in just 2 days. It's super creamy, great flavor. Our family loves it. I really recommend you try it out the next time you're at the store. We're gonna use 1.5 cups of this butter in our frosting, so we'll go ahead and add that to our mixing bowl. You want it at room temperature. All right, so we've got our butter in our bowl. We're gonna go ahead and mix this until it's nice and creamy. Okay, now we need to melt our chocolate so that we can add that to our butter. All right, so once your chocolate is melted, we're gonna add that to our butter in a few parts. You don't wanna add it all at once. It incorporates a little bit better and doesn't end up with chunks if you add it slowly. We'll stir that in first. All right, we'll add a little bit more. All right, now we have a beautiful creamy chocolate and buttery mixture. To that we're gonna add a little bit of cocoa powder. We're gonna start adding about half of our powdered sugar. We'll mix this until it's smooth and creamy. All right, now I'll add some salt and about half of the heavy cream. Stir all that together till it's nice and creamy and smooth. Now we're gonna add the rest of our powdered sugar kind of slowly in here. All right, so you may notice it start to get thick. So this is when we're gonna start adding some more of our heavy cream to kind of thin it back out and get the right consistency of frosting. All right, so as it starts to thin out, you're gonna wanna kind of consider what kind of decorations you're gonna put on your cake. If you're doing something a little more complicated, you may want a stiffer buttercream. We're gonna do something a little simpler on this cake, so I'm gonna thin it out a little bit more. We've got all that melted chocolate in here. You can just smell all the delicious chocolate. All right, now that we've got our frosting made and our baked and cooled cakes, we're gonna go ahead and layer our cake. And we'll start with our bottom layer. These cakes have a little bit of a dome, so you may wanna trim that off the top so that everything is level and you don't end up with cake layers that break or slide around. All right, so once your cake layer is level, we'll go ahead and add about a cup of frosting. We'll spread that into a nice even layer. You want it to go all the way to the edges of your cake. And then we'll want to add our next layer of cake. And again, if that one's not level, you'll want to level that first before you add it on top. All right, we've got a nice even layer of chocolate frosting, so we're going to add our top layer of cake. Okay, so once you have your final layer of cake on top, I'm gonna go ahead and smooth out the sides of the cake a little bit and fill in any gaps with this kind of frosting that's just sticking out. So once I've added the frosting to the top of my cake, I actually like to use a piping bag and tip to add it to the sides, but you can do that freehand as well. Either way is totally fine. But I'm going to go ahead and smooth the sides of the cake a little bit. Okay, now on the sides I'm going to use my offset spatula to kind of make a little swirly line thing on the side. I'm sure that's not the official name. And then we're going to do something kind of similar on top. Just kind of use our offset spatula to create a little design. You could really do a swirl or whatever you want. I'm gonna kind of do almost like loops. I think it kind of looks a little bit like a flower. And while you could stop right there, I myself have trouble not adding extra garnishes, so we're gonna add even more chocolate, because why not? I'm gonna add a little bit of chopped chocolate around the top edge. All right, so now we have our fully frosted devil's food cake with some lovely chocolate garnishes, ready to go, serve to your guests or hoard for yourself. It's fudgy, delicious, full of chocolate. You are going to love it. For the full recipe, head over to lifeloveandsugar.com.